Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. CFL Week 12. Alright, last week it went 4-0 in the win-losses, 3-1 against the spread, 2-2 on the over-under. Brings a year-to-date total, or season-to-date total of 11-5 win-loss, 9-7 against the spread, 11-5 on the over-under, which is an overall of 64.5%. I'm down with that. 65 is where I want to be, but 64.5, can't get better than that. We have some decent games this week. We have one game that's going to be just kind of a lopsided, but you know what? We have a couple games that are going to be close. So the first one we have 1-2 in the West. We have Winnipeg Blue Bombers at 8-2 versus the Saskatchewan Rough Riders at 6-3. These two teams actually play in Week 13 as well. This one's at Saskatchewan. Next week is at Winnipeg. So it's going to be a good test for the Blue Bombers to see how they are. They only lead Saskatchewan by a game and a half right now. So if somehow the Rough Riders are able to win this, and they have a game up on them anyway, so that's a half game. So next week could be for the division. So, I mean, it all depends on what happens this weekend and what happens next week. Last week, the Blue Bombers beat the Eskimos 34-29. If you look at just raw yardage, that score is not really what it should have been. The Blue Bombers were outgained 523 yards to 278. So, I mean, they were giving up yards, but they weren't giving up the points. I know Andrew Harris is leading the league with 908 yards so far for the Blue Bombers. The Rough Riders, they won last week versus Montreal 17-10. They had more yards than Montreal, 231 to 141. So both these teams kind of scored in the 270 to 230 yards last week. So are we going to get that level of offense? Or are we going to get what the Blue Bombers have done this year and score some points, put some yards up, having the league lead in rushing? Both teams are 3-0 in their last three games. Winnipeg is 5-0 in the division this year, while Saskatchewan is 2-1 in the division. Right now, the line, because of the home team, Saskatchewan is favored by 5.5. I have a feeling that the Blue Bombers are going to be able to handle the Rough Riders. I think Harris is going to have a big game. I'm giving the 5.5 to Winnipeg. I am having Saskatchewan cover. And then I am taking under on the 47.5. I think these two teams, they're going to be able to stop scoring, because you can see they've done that. I mean, last week was a low-scoring game for Saskatchewan, 17-10. And the Bombers they scored enough to win. So I think it's going to be under the 47.5. So I got Winnipeg winning. I have Saskatchewan covering at 5.5, which Saskatchewan is actually favored by, and I'm taking under on the 47.5. Next up, I think this game is going to be kind of lopsided. We have the first versus last in the East. We have the Toronto Argonauts at 1-8 versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats at 8-2. Toronto lost 28-22 to Montreal last week, or their last game, and then last week, the last game for Hamilton, they won versus BC 13-10. McLeod, Bethnal Thomas, 36 for 47 for 464 in the loss last week. So he can still put it up there. So we'll see how the Tiger Cats can stop him. The Tiger Cats are 3-0 in the last three. They're 5-0 at home this year. Argonauts are 1-2 in the last three, 1-3 on the road. These two teams played back on June 22nd. Hamilton won 64-14. Hamilton had 604 yards in that game. So they can put it up on Toronto. I think the rematch, and a lot of times when they have a second game in a season, you don't see the point total as high. It's like they're able to scout them a little bit more and be able to prepare for them. So right now, Hamilton is favored by 11. And the over-under is 51.5, based on that 78 points from game one. I'm taking Hamilton to win, of course, to cover the 11. Take it under on the 51.5. I just think Toronto has seen enough of Hamilton in that game to know what they can do, hopefully, to bring that point total down a little bit so it's not a 50-point blowout. I could be wrong. It could be 51-0 or 52-0 and it's over. So we'll see what happens. But I got Hamilton winning. Next up, we had Edmonton Eskimos 6-4. Easy for me to say today. Versus the Calgary Stampede at 5-4. Edmonton is 2-3 in their last 5. They lost last week 34-28 to the Blue Bombers. Calgary, they're 3-2 in their last 5. They've lost 2 straight. They lost last week to Montreal in a 40-34 overtime game. They're second in points this year at 25.5. While the Calgary Stampede are 6th in points, 22. Trevor Harris has the most passing yards in the league this year for Edmonton. Their last meeting was August 3rd. Calgary won 24-18. Calgary's favored at home, 3.5 here. I'm actually taking the Eskimos on the road. I'm giving them a 3.5. I got the Eskimos winning, covering at 3.5, and under on the 47.5. So those are the 3 games for the CFL Week 12. I want to thank each and every one of you who took time out of your busy schedule to watch Week 11 for me. I appreciate you watching Week 12 as well. The Canadian Football League is new to me. First 2 videos I've done. I started doing some kind of picks on paper, just kind of get an idea of what was going on before the last 2 videos. Definitely check out the NCAA College Football Week 1. I know this is the way they had the 2 games last week, 3 games last week, and then the rest of it this weekend. I should have kind of split it up, Week 0, Week 1. I did it all in Week 1, so it's kind of getting buried a little bit. I reshared it on Twitter. On Twitter, it's at Rob Sports Show. Make sure you tweet this one out. Share this video as well for me. It'll be on there sometime today. This is Thursday morning, so it'll be up in about an hour or so. Make sure you check out the NCAA. Make sure next week we have NCAA Week 2. We have NFL Week 1, and we have Week 13 of CFL. And we will have probably a NASCAR video or 2, pro wrestling video or 2. I know anybody out there is a pro wrestling fan, you know here on Robert Sports Show do a lot of pro wrestling. Big weekend in pro wrestling. New Japan goes to the Royal Quest is in British Columbia, or in United Kingdom. We have the NXT UK Takeover Cardiff, and we have All Elite Wrestling is All Out in Chicago. Make sure you check out the preview for All Out. Be there here on the Road Sports Show. I'll try to have some reviews of that stuff up next week. So there may be quite a number of videos coming up next week. Make sure you check those all out. Thank you for watching Robert Sports Show. And as always, don't just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader in sports channel content.